Welcome, everybody, to MSP Unplugged. I am your host, Paco LeBron. This is the place to learn how to run your MSP, whether you're a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. As you can see, we have a little bit of new digs around here. We're in our new office that we moved in here a couple months ago. First time podcasting here. And I am happy to have our first guest be able to speak on quite a few things that were in a very, very great conference called ScaleCon last year. And we're going to dive into a little bit about what he's doing as well. But it's not who you think. But before we go into that, I want to talk about TechCon Unplugged. As you heard from the last few episodes, we are back in Chicago on September 17th to the 19th. We are in early bird tickets. Venue and agenda will be coming here soon. So I implore you, before those early bird tickets run out, head over to techconunplugged.com. Yes, I understand there's a nice little landing page. We will have the full-fledged website here coming soon, and it'll be all the greatness that you have. We are in our 7th year of hosting TechCon Unplugged, and we're going to be tossing a lot of great value to you here. So it's going to be, if you were at DC, and if you haven't seen the video for DC, head over to our YouTube page. If you didn't come, you missed out. Chicago will be nonetheless. So it'll be a great time. Head over to techconunplugged.com, September 17th to the 19th. We will see you there. But I am super excited to have this gentleman here. He is the owner, founder, running the show over at MSP Sites, TechPro Marketing. I am referring to Nate Freedman. Nate Freedman, how you doing today, my friend?
Very good. Thank you for the intro.
No, I appreciate you coming on here. So for those that are listening, this is an interesting journey for us to have Nate on here. We had the pleasure to interview him over at ScaleCon 2025, which was and I always confuse this because I went to 2 back-to-back events. One was in Nashville, one was in New Orleans. It was in New Orleans. Great hotel, great event, hosted by MSP Camp and the Tech Tribe. Nate had an amazing session. I don't know if Tahir has those recorded or not, or I don't know if you have that footage. But it was one of those. It was a great session. He really referred to a lot of tactics and just how to present yourself on the web, specifically on Google and other items, and just all around great knowledge. And so we interviewed him. It was a great interview. The audio was lost due to a equipment failure. We scheduled Nate several weeks ago. I had a windstorm, so we had to reschedule from there. And then last week, this platform, for whatever reason, was causing its own problems. So I am happy to finally have Nate here with all of you. We're going to dive into some great topics and discussion, but all around, this will not be the last time that Nate is here. But Nate, appreciate your flexibility, as I mentioned before. But for those that may not know who you are, and maybe tell a little bit about kind of your origin story and how you kind of came to forming TechPro Marketing and MSP Sites.
And the cool thing, Paco, is like everything we talked about 6 months ago at ScaleCon, like some of the basics are still relevant, but almost everything has changed since then. And then we were going to have our call 2 weeks ago. Like some of that stuff would have been relevant, but almost everything has changed since then. And even the call last week, so much has changed. So yeah, I'm glad to be here today. It's March 26th. We're going to give you guys what's working today, March 26th, 2026. My name's Nate Freedman. I run a company called TechPro Marketing. That's our marketing agency. We work only with MSPs, and we've been around for about 10 years in the MSP market. TechPro Marketing, we're focused really on MSPs that are close to that 8-figure mark and need to have similar to an IT company, have an outsourced marketing company and an outsourced marketing department come in. We also have MSP Sites, which is something that is maybe started a bit as a passion project for me, but has really been where my focus has gone, which is to help early stage IT entrepreneurs really get off the ground, grow their business. And we do that through building all the tech, which is, I think, where me, you, and Rick get along so well in kind of the tech stack on it, installing that, having our team support, and then once we've got it all set up for you, coaching you on actually getting great results out of it. For myself, I think I'm like a lot of the MSPs who are listening. I'm now 42, And when I was in middle school and high school in the late 90s and early 2000s, I graduated in 2002. I was like on BBS systems. I was like building my own computer. I made something called like a carputer. And this was basically like before even like it was so hacked and rigged together. But obviously before like an iPod came out, we like somehow figured out a way through a tape adapter to build a computer that we put underneath the, the front seat of the car and like DC voltage and somehow hacked some tiny screen onto it and used a 9-pin keypad to code it. It was so fun. Built my own arcade machine. So I know now it's popular with like these one-up arcades and all these like custom arcade companies. But back then I was on a website like the BYOC, Build Your Own Arcade Controls message board online. This is like before Discord, before Reddit. So I've been really a kind of tech hobbyist. I worked at Bay State Computer Repair, doing web design and computer repair for like a local computer repair shop. But for me, I found like my passion was more in the website design side of things and in the online marketing side of things. So although I like was always doing computer repair on the side, I really built out my practice related to digital marketing. And about 10 years ago, I was like, I'm just going to fully be a MSP marketer, because what happened to me was I found a client that I was at that point, I was working with all different types of clients. And I had one client who were getting along really well. And I was like, well, like, what do you, it was a new prospect. I was like, well, what do you do? What's like, what type of business is it? He's like, we're an MSP. And I was like, a what? He's like, well, we do like, computer support for other businesses. I was like, oh, sounds like similar to what I was doing back in the day. Before there was such thing as an MSP. He kind of brought me up to speed. From there, I did something that I recommend a lot of our clients do. And this is when you niche down into a market. One of the first things I want everyone to do is leverage existing market infrastructure. That's kind of a complicated way of saying go onto podcasts or do guest blog posts or do webinars on other people's platform. Because the truth is, right, Paco, I'm sure I could go and I could build my own, start my own webinar, start my own podcast, and I could promote it and I could run ads to it. And after a year of doing it, maybe I can get like 1,000 loyal listeners. And like, that would be fantastic. Or I could just go on your podcast. You've already done all that work and get in front of a much better and more engaged audience. So for me, the original partnerships I made was with Barracuda, and they had a podcast and blog. The Smarter MSP blog is something I'm still contributing to. Back then, I built a great relationship with Continuum, who was doing something similar, and a few other strategic partners really helped me like burst onto the scene. So
gotcha.
That's my story. Now we've got about 250 MSPs in our program and various different, various different service tiers that we're working on. And we're trying to grow and help just more and more MSPs grow, specifically a lot of the early stage, but not necessarily. It doesn't mean you have to have just started up. I think like as long as you're kind of sub 5 million, you would be great with a lot of the marketing stuff we're doing.
Yeah, no, and that's great. Our demographic normally is anywhere from under 3 million, less than 20 employees right there listening in. And again, like you mentioned, there's 3 kind of demographics that we've seen with our audience. It's either those that are starting out and trying to figure out how to get into this world now and sift through the constant changes. And we just talked about changes earlier today. And, there are those that have been in business for a few years and they're trying to stabilize and trying to continue that growth. And then there are those that have been doing this for over 10, 15, 20 years, and they're just trying to stay relevant. They're trying to understand what is going on right now. How do they continue to keep growing and expanding and really focusing on how they can provide and deliver not only just the services, but the trust and the advisement of kind of what's going on the day-to-day as for those that are continuing into the current market that we have. And so, in regards to, again, I think one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure that we had you was, your ScaleCon session was a highlight with a lot of MSPs, right? And I know that a lot of things have changed, but, in regards to, the core message and when your biggest takeaway that you wanted MSP owners to walk away was regarding from their websites and their Google driven marketing, what was that? And has it kind of slowly or drastically changed since then?
I think I've leaned more into the core message, and my message for 2026 is really, it's on the spot of exactly what the core of what I talked about was that this is going to be hard, and this is going to be freaking hard. In the past, as a marketing agency, it's very tempting to tell your clients, hey, just pay me this much money and I'll get you this many leads. But when I looked at my own business and my own experience working with agencies, and what I would do for my business is I would never trust my growth to an agency in that way. So what I'm telling everyone right now is there are two sides of business. There's growing your own business and there's service delivery. Quite frankly, I think we all know without growing your business, you're not even going to be able to do service delivery. So many MSPs are really excited about service delivery, and you should be. You have to be excited about your product and your service, but at the same time, they're saying, well, I'm going to pay someone else to do the growth side. As an entrepreneur, that will never work. So specifically what I mentioned at ScaleCon was, if you have a website and you think you're going to get by having stock photos and photos of server rooms and these types of things, no, it's not going to work. And the MSPs that are winning online, they're coughing up the $1,000, whatever it is. They're getting their team together. They're doing a photo shoot every few months, and they're having great content. And in the past, I would tell my clients, oh, no, we'll do what we can without your photos. If you don't have them, that's okay. But the truth is, it's not okay. Businesses that are growing, like, even look what's happening with McDonald's and Burger King right now. And this is something over the last few months I've noticed changed. Even the biggest brands in the world, the CEOs are operating a personal brand right now. So there's kind of like, some of you guys may have seen this. If you haven't, look it up. There's like this little war between the McDonald's and Burger King CEO on who's producing better social media content right now. And the McDonald's CEO like took the smallest bite of the big arch and got like shredded for it. Then the Burger King CEO took this big bite of the Whopper or whatever. And that's the truth right now. Like, even the CEOs of McDonald's and Burger King are realizing, I have to become a content marketer. My content has to be real and authentic. And this is where it's changed since that September, is now all of the service stuff that we do as a B2B service provider, it is becoming commoditized. It's becoming easier to deliver. So us as humans and this concept of getting people to know, like, and trust you is only becoming more important. And at the same time, there's another factor that's happening in society, is this loneliness epidemic. And now people want more community. They want more people. They want to be with more people they enjoy. So being that person that they know, like, and trust is actually almost the only thing you're going to be able to do in the future to differentiate yourself. So I mentioned things like doing photos and videos and actually taking that seriously. I am even deeper into that. I'm more bullish on making sure you have an amazing camera setup. Paco, I've had this setup, if anyone's watching online, I've had a setup like this, and I've been slowly improving it every year with a digital SLR, with a Shure SM7B. I've had something like this for the past 5 years. Like, you have to do this. I'm not going to let you get by with some crappy webcam setup that just makes you look like an amateur. Like, no, we can't do that anymore. So that was one piece I talked about. Another thing I talked about was social proof. And I said, we know this. People, the number one thing that potential customers are going to want answered when they get to your website, when they interact with you, is they just want you to answer one question. Have you done this and solved the exact problem that I have for people who are just like me? And if the answer is yes, there's a good chance they're going to want to work with you. So I told everybody a lot about the importance of getting Google reviews. And this is still paramount. But now we need more levels of reviews, because the AI agents, they are looking at Google quality and quantity, and they're getting better at that. But they're also exploring other platforms. So where I'm kind of making a small shift in that is also Trustpilot, also Clutch.co, also Yelp if you're on there, and spreading your reviews out a little more, because Google is losing market share in terms of people looking for a recommendation for MSPs.
Yeah.
But Google's still king. So Google reviews have to be your number one. I talked about collecting video testimonials from your clients. Yes, you still need to do that. So all of these things that make us real are only becoming more important in the age of AI, where anyone can use Claude Code and spin up a beautiful MSP website that's got all the AI slop. That's just literally the average of every other MSP site out there. And it's going to look fine and it's going to look standard. So if you want to stand out, you need to have real opinions. You need to have real content. You need to be a real person.
Yeah, it's funny because, you know, me and Juan Fernandez, who owner of Summit Holdings, which owns our MSP over at MSP Owners Group, he has a phrase that has stuck with me, where there's thought leadership and people who do provide that original thought discussions, your viewpoints and things of that nature, and then there's thought regurgitation. And that's what you are seeing with a lot of the AI driven content, whether that is through visuals and content and copy, or even down to even presentations and discussions, where I forgot who I was talking to was mentioning there was someone presenting who was not aware of the MSP space and was trying to speak intelligently about it and was reading word for word of a copied AI discussion on that topic, right? And it's amazing on how, when you don't seem authentic, you lose perception, perspective, and just the audience is willing to either listen to you or even want to interact with you in a way of genuine additional conversations, having the ability to work with you and things of that nature. Like, I'll tell you what, you know, for you and I have been in, we've passed by so many times in so many years in different avenues and platforms that we have. But the moment I knew, I was like, you know what, I got to make the time to talk to Nate, was in your presentation to ScaleCon. It wasn't about what you talked about as far as what your Google, about the managing of sites, your lead generation methods, things of that nature. It wasn't about how you had spoke about, hey, this is what I truly believe the MSP space is. It was, hey, I'm an avid wrestling fan, and here's a photo of me to show you that I'm human. And me, for the audience who knows, that I'm an avid wrestling fan, to the point where at TechCon, and I don't know if you know this, Nate, we have a community champion award that we give to a member of the MSP Unplugged community, and it is a wrestling title belt. And so Jason Miller is our 3-time champ, you know, and so we'll be implementing something similar to one of the awards here locally, where he will be going in, and he doesn't know this is the first time we'll mention this on air, is that he'll be going into the Community Hall of Fame. So that will be his esteemed place for winning the belt 3 times in a row. And then allowing for a new champion of the community to kind of come through. So that'll be more on the TechCon side. But again, that's how you bridge communication, and people love to work with people that they feel that they know, trust, and like, and things like that. You would be surprised on how much further they go along in that authenticity that you've mentioned. But, you know, going into, as you talked about, the MSP website strategy, right? And really talking about how lead generation is king, and you have to figure out how you get back to the user on, again, what's in it for me? How can you help me? And so, you know, and again, you talked about a bunch of things right now. And back then you talked about managing SEO, being able to, work on different Google tactics, which is whether it's business profile, local pack visibility, reviews, which we just talked about right now. But gearing back toward reviews, you shared how crossing the 100 review mark in Google can boost conversion rates by 40% from a visitor to book a call. How do you frame reviews from a nice to have to a number one sales tool, like you discussed, not only for Google, but also being able to spread them across all these review sites? Because I do agree with you. I think that right now, not even adding AI, but even several years ago, talking with other MSPs, they mentioned the diversification of reviews and how that is coming through as well. But for you, how is framing that into an MSP for them to understand, and what is the message that you've translated to them so that they understand this is an important piece of your business and here's how to do it?
I mean, for me, it's pretty simple. It's like the numbers are cut and dry. We've just run the analysis over all of our clients, and we've just seen, like, when you have 100 plus, we get way more leads. We had a client come to us recently, and I think they were a little bit skeptical. They were like, we're going to blow you up, dude. Like, you're going to get a ton of leads. And he was like a little bit skeptical. We didn't tell him that we're going to blow you up because you have 323 Google reviews and you just haven't optimized it correctly. So all we need to do is do a few small tweaks and you're going to blow up. And it did. So,
nice.
We've just found, like, every time it just is the biggest difference. And I think there's a few things about it, like why it works. Number one is just the general, it builds trust. But I think number two is, if you look at the Google Maps pack, and Google is changing a lot. There's now AI summaries for certain searches, but still, as of today, March 26th, 2026, if you search up IT services company near me or something similar to that on Google, you're going to see the ads up top. After that, you're going to see the Maps pack below that. The Maps actually shows the number of reviews in the Maps. So if you can get into that top 3 Maps pack, and then there's 3 people, and one of them has 300 5-star reviews, another one has 22, and the other one is 8. Which one are you going to click on, right? You're going to click on, the one that has the most. Yeah. Then you're going to fill out the form, and we see this all the time. We're impressed by your reviews, so we wanted to reach out. Like, they'll literally say that. So I think that's one piece of it. And then the other thing that we kind of talked about is lead flow really the problem? Because I hear 2 different stories from a lot of MSPs. I hear 2 different stories from 2 different MSPs. One MSP comes to me and they say, Nate, I haven't won a deal in 6 months. Like, what's going on with my marketing? And then I go in and look at their leads and I see all these leads in there. And I'm like, okay, well, those guys never called me back. They weren't serious. Okay. Then I talked to another MSP and I'm like, how you doing? They're like, oh, I've won like 6 deals the last 6 months. I'm like, dude, you only got 10 leads. Like, yeah, no, but I call them back right away. Most of the time they sign the same day. And I'm like, oh, maybe that one buyer is reaching out to those 2 MSPs, and the one who waits a day to respond is getting ghosted. Because that happened to me recently. I painted my office, so you guys can see it was a little bit too bright, and I wanted to paint the rest of it. So I got my office painted, and I reached out to 3 painting companies for quotes. And here's what I did. And this is not nice. And my mom would be very disappointed if she found out, because she believes that, this is how you do it. And this is how you did it in the 60s and 70s. You didn't do it like this. People had more common courtesy, but common courtesy has gone out the window in a lot of what we do. So I got the 3 quotes. I submitted 3 quotes. One of them called me back immediately. And they were like, Nate, we got your quote. We need Tyler to come out and take some measurements. When are you free? And I was like, well, I'm busy today. Like, well, why doesn't he come out at 9 a.m. tomorrow? I was like, cool, have him come at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Tyler came. He was a super nice guy. He took all the measurements. He's like, I'll get you a quote later this afternoon. He did. Meanwhile, the next day, after I'd engaged with Tyler, the other 2 painting companies started calling me back. And I saw it on my thing and I was like, am I really going to get a whole nother quote? Like, I don't think so.
Time out. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, honestly, I'm just going to go with Tyler. And I didn't even say no to them. So from their mind, like, oh, another unserious buyer, another somebody who's just a tire kicker. I'm not a tire kicker. I'm a fast mover. And that is what's happening in the MSP world is people are just on the B2B buyers are honestly just making their decision the same day. And we need to recognize that. And we need our sales process to really lead flow is not the problem in most cases. And even in my own case, like I don't get offended at myself. I'm not mad at myself when I go and look at my thing and I'm like, dude, I should not have only won 4 deals off of 100 leads. That's not good. I can critically look at myself. But what I see happening with the non-growth focused entrepreneurs, the ones who don't take the accountability for the growth of their business and are looking to abdicate it, what I see them doing is trying to blame instead of saying, well, what can I do differently? Right. And here are some of the things you can do differently. Okay. Number 1, you can make sure that you respond to all leads within 1 minute. Like this is probably the number 1 thing you can do. And you might, it's like, here's like how I would, what I would say is you'll spend like $5,000 a month on an SEO company, but you won't spend $400 a month on an appointment setting company that just calls back inbound leads. Like that doesn't make sense. So you need to find a way to call back leads within 1 minute. The second thing I want you doing is if you notice that there is a gap between when you first schedule the first appointment to when you get into that meeting, you're like, well, they're not qualified. You might need to do some expectation setting between when they contact you and when they get into that first call with you. And that's in the form of what we call a video sales letter. So we know as marketers, we all know what a VSL is, but a lot of MSPs don't know what it is. And also they don't know how to use it. So the way that I'll recommend you use a VSL would be if you get all these common questions and these common objections that you need to break down before your first sales call, what you do is you, between the sales call, between when they fill out the form and when they have their first call with you, you make sure they watch the video, right? And you make the video amazing. And you put all this social proof in the video. And then they come into the call and they're like, oh yeah, cool. Now I watched the video. Yeah. So I just have a couple questions. Like that thing you mentioned, is that real? Like, can we do that? That really got me thinking. Then you're like, that's just one step you do. But in order to do that, you need to record all your sales calls. You need to diagnose what's going on with them. And then you need to figure out the common objections and you need to put it into the VSL.
Yep. Then
the next thing is you're going to look at is what is your offer? So we all know about my advisor, Alex, the world's most expensive advisor. He has a book called $100 Million Offers. Okay. But it's actually confusing. And I don't want to like go say it lightly. Like, what is an offer? Like, what is it? It's confusing, right?
Right.
What it is it's like, I'll give you this if you give me that, right? It's kind of like you're trading Dragon Ball Z cards with your friends and the playground or whatever. I don't know, whatever card you were collecting back in the day. So I know we got some Pokemon fans here. I'll give you a Charmander if you give me a Charizard or whatever. I'll give you 2 Pikachus for however you want to do it. That's an offer. I'm making you an offer. So what you need to do is figure out what is my right front-end offer. And your front-end offer is what's going to disqualify the rest of the competition. I think if you're an MSP having trouble winning deals, you probably have either a front-end offer issue or a pre-call flow issue or a getting back to your prospects right away issue. So, yeah.
Well, so I would even dial it into even further is, when's the last time, for those listening, you've tested your form to make sure that it is delivering those leads to you?
Yeah.
Because it's oftentimes that we don't realize something broke. a disconnection didn't or a connection didn't authenticate? Did you change forms? Did you retire a form? Is there an old form still out there somewhere? These are things to kind of verify, right? Because if you haven't gotten any leads in a while and you're putting all this effort, if your form's broken and the calls aren't being picked up, there's an issue. And I totally agree with you on, this is a lesson that a mentor taught me many, many years ago in sales, is that time kills all deals.
Yes.
And I always took that as one of those where time kills all deals, and this opportunity is the last opportunity. And it's one of those where a mindset where we got to make sure that we treat each and every one that comes in and understand and pre-qualify them so that they can ensure either a great deliverable or you have a great conversation to help that person out as well. Because again, we're all in this to help people, right? It's just a matter of who's going to become friends and who we're going to be able to do business with, right? And those are big pieces to really dive into and understand on how just understanding those pieces that you just mentioned, along with is your playbook properly set up? And if not, who can you talk to? Or there again, like yourself and other resources out there that can help guide on a way where if you're investing, make sure you're investing in the right places. Because if I'm paying again to an SEO company, but you're not returning the calls that are coming in, you have a flow issue. And there's something, and there's other things that probably need to be reevaluated. Because even it could be down to a closing issue as well, right? And if that's the problem, why is that? So there's so many things to piece into that. And again, we dove into a few of those things, but I want to kind of go back to how you mentioned in regards to when someone is searching, right? Because obviously search to me is still, people are still doing some type of search, whether it's on Google, Bing, Yahoo, being able to use some, I've even heard people are using, sometimes there are even AI chats to do search and stuff, and Gemini and things of that nature. But one piece that I feel like a lot of people, you mentioned optimization, right? And I think there's one Google product that a lot of people that still do not optimize and treat as an afterthought. And you've even mentioned this, and that's Google Business Profile. It's either, like, for example, posting on that as an avenue, it's done sporadically or ignored all the way through for optimization. Do you see any pitfalls or quick wins when it comes to GBP or Google Business Profile that an MSP could probably take care of today?
Yeah. I will preface this by saying the views and opinions stated in this next statement are not official for the MSP Unplugged, and you shall read the Google Business Profile terms of service and make your own judgment on how you want to approach this. And we do not have any official recommendation, but you guys remember in the old Yellow Pages, when you opened up the Yellow Pages, what was page 1? AAA towing, and then there was a 4A towing, and then 5A towing, and then it's like every business in the world is like 17 A's to start it, because they all want to get to the front page of the Yellow Pages. And that's what I want to, that theory is what you can apply to your Google Business Profile. So sometimes there is a business and their name is, like, literally the name of the business is Indiana. Well, for example, Jim Stewart runs a great MSP. This guy's been crushing it on Google for years. The name of his business is Boston IT Services. Guess what keyword he ranks for? His business has been around for over 20 years. That was not his idea. Maybe 25 years. It was not his plan. Yeah. But the guy's been crushing it on SEO for all these years because the name of his business. So having your keywords in the most important parts of your business profile are really important. And if it's in your name, quite frankly, that's the most important part. But then there's always the description, having your service areas configured, and then real photos. So Google can read something called EXIF data. So for photographers, you guys know what that is. It's the metadata on an image. So I strongly recommend, when you're out and about and the techs are out in the field, train them on taking a photo in the Google Business app. Another successful installation done. Google will read that data and will have a deeper understanding of your service areas.
Yeah, no, I think that it's amazing on how, I'll even throw us in there. We had a recent website revamp through marketing efforts, and previously we had all of our real photos that we took from our amazing photographer. And for those who have not seen our episode of Should You Be Doing a Podcast Nowadays in 2026, over at shout out to DMLO Media, and had it all updated and was great, things like that. And then we had our website refresh due to the acquisition, and they were all AI images. And I cannot tell you how I just am not in love with AI images. That's just not my, because again, you lose the authenticity of the feel for the brand and the culture, right? And so since then, we were in process of updating those because of the big stink that I made. But it says something to where being able to, again, we go back to authenticity. People want to know who they're going to work with and who are they going to partner with, right? And it's great to see the owner, right? But who am I working with? Who am I going to talk to? Who am I going to see day to day, right? And descriptions and things are great. And then, and again, this is my limited knowledge of things, but, people like to work with other people. And the biggest piece that I've learned over the years is people hate to be sold to, but people love to buy. And how do you ensure that the feeling they get with you is something that they do want to work toward and buy, right? And so, it's amazing on how that simple piece is missed, where others that have taken that seriously to move forward with their approach. But going into AI, right? We talked about AI search a little bit. It's changing on how prospects find MSPs. Right. Yep. And I think you had mentioned specifically, and I think you even wrote a blog somewhere in regards to why SEO isn't dead, but it's evolving. Is there something in regards to an MSP strategy, whether that's Google, whether that is other areas to update their information, their content, the information being pulled from search and AI searches in 2026 for them to stay visible, and so that they can make sure that they capture the intent when traditional rankings, as you mentioned, are now changing on a constant day-to-day basis?
So there are, if you look at the Pareto's law, 80-20, there are some things you can do that are on a tactical level, like making sure that you follow Google's EEAT and have all of your page metadata and all this kind of technical stuff. That will do a little bit. But if you really want to do the 20%, that's going to give you the 80% return on investment. It's the same stuff that it's always been, and it's the hard stuff that nobody wants to do. So let's take a step back and look at the AI platform and Google's revenue model. So the AI platform's revenue model's almost there. It will be there soon, but Google's revenue model, we know, for search at least, they have ads that they put on the top of the search, and they charge the advertisers to be there. The way they're able to charge the advertisers is by having buyers using their search engine. So the way they get buyers to use their search engine is to actually provide the best results that really answer the questions the best. And just not their organic search has to actually be the best. There are other search engines that literally people were like, dude, the results suck on this. I'm not using it anymore. I'm going to Google because every time I get the results, they're way better.
Right.
So it will always be this way because the revenue models are always going to be similar to this, that all of these platforms make their money by having end users use the platform and get what they want out of it. So you will never be able to trick Google for that long. You know what I mean? These little things will help for a short term and a tiny bit. The real things, like if what I would recommend is like what I talked about. For me, how did I get to number 1 on Google for MSP marketing? It was through the partnership I built with Barracuda Networks, because I can go and build 500 spammy backlinks and do any stupid backlink strategy that I want. Right. But literally the backlink that mattered was a backlink from barracuda.com, which is a New York Stock Exchange listed Fortune whatever company linking to me. That was the ultimate credibility. So like one hard to achieve backlink that came through a real relationship and real hard work, and me having to get out of my shell and be like, I'm going to reach out to Barracuda and actually do some hard work. That's what put me at the top of the rankings for MSP marketing. I never did any of those tricks to get to the top of the rankings. And that's what I'm saying for this is going to be hard. It's going to be freaking hard. But it's also easy because 99% of the people are all going to avoid the hard work. So all we need to do is just do the hard work and we're going to win. So as an MSP, what I would recommend if I'm like thinking about any of these strategies is not what's the trick, but what's the hard thing that nobody else is going to do. So if I'm talking about backlinks, which we know are really important, and a backlink for people who want to know, it's a link from another website to your website. And that's basically the number one way that Google and all the other algorithms define how trustworthy you are. I wouldn't like look at an SEO company to build my backlinks. I'd be like, can I somehow like get a relationship with the city government of the city I'm in and become a recommended IT vendor? Like, what are the steps to do that? Because if I'm trying to rank for Cincinnati IT support and I have a link from the city of Cincinnati website, like that's going to get me to rank. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how you would get there, but I know I got on Barracuda's website. I know I got on Continuum's website when I literally had no idea what I was doing. So it's all the same. And the hard things have the most impact and the easy things are fool's gold.
Yeah. You know, and again, I think I need to implore everyone who's listening, right? Like, and you've said this, right? You've helped generate over 20,000 plus high quality leads for MSPs with your business, right?
Yeah.
You know, it's a huge track record, right? So you are speaking from experience of who you've worked with, you know, and we've gone through a few of them. I mean, a lot of things that we've talked about. But if you know, of everything you've mentioned, right? Because there's so many things that we mentioned, right? We said MacPack, treat your Google business profile properly, you know, treating partnerships in that way of true partnerships, doing the hard work. Is there one change or focus or even experiment that you would urge an MSP to run in the next 30 to 60 days? And what results should they realistically expect so that they're not doing something and feeling that it's not going anywhere, and or they're not doing something that is just, again, as you mentioned, fool's gold?
Yeah. There's not one. I think there has to be two.
Okay.
Because you mentioned, like, if you don't have a way to capture leads and your forms aren't working on your website and you don't have a chat agent that's actually working and your phone number is the wrong phone number on your website, like nothing will work. So, but if you just do that alone, it won't do anything either. So I think in digital marketing, there's always traffic and conversion. So the first thing I would do in this two-step thing is, number one, I wouldn't do a website redesign. I wouldn't go like, you don't need to do any of that, but make sure you have strong lead capture. And if you want to, like, I've written about this on tons of articles. If you find me on Instagram, Nate Helps MSPs, and then go to my link in bio, that's probably the easiest way to find my next webinar, where I'm going to like be just kind of the stuff that we talked about at ScaleCon. I'm going to like go through that a little bit slower so you can get like the real things you need to do. That's just like super quick for lead capture. So make sure you have lead capture set up before you do anything. But then, the next thing I would do is be like, get 50 Google reviews and optimize your Google profile to have the right keywords in it and see what happens. We now started something where when clients start with us, and this is all like offer, delivery, all this stuff, we could talk for hours about it. But one of the things that I noticed with my business was that I was facing client churn because the relationships that our clients built were not the right relationship that I wanted my business to have with my clients. So one thing I adjusted is like, well, at least for now, every new client that comes in, they're going to do a 6-week boot camp with me. So we have about like 10 MSPs in each boot camp, and literally they meet in a group with me for 6 weeks for an hour. And we kind of run through like the short list, but it's 6 hours to really get it down of the things you need to be doing. We had clients week 1. We do all the Google business stuff, what we talked about today. For the cohort we're running right now, we just finished week 4. We start with a business best. 3 of the people in the boot camp this week were like, I got my first lead from my website. Nice. And a lot of them were like, and we haven't even launched the new site yet. I'm like, yeah, it was that Google stuff. So the Google business profile, I would do a sprint for that, try to get up to 50 Google reviews, and with your lead capture working and the right optimization on the profile, keywords and everything, that's probably your shortest bet to getting leads immediately.
Awesome. Well, we're going to round up the show, Nate. I mean, again, we could talk, and this will not be the last time we'll have you on the show. And, we're definitely working on something here to have you at TechCon as well in September. But we're going to do a quick rapid fire. Yeah. And these are just first in top of your mind, new segment that we've introduced in the show. Currently right now for you, and I think I'm going to switch this because we've talked about something else, but I'm going to make it loose. What's your favorite Google or AI tool / hack right now?
Again, no liability. This is not an official endorsement by MSP Unplugged. OpenClaw.
Oh, and so obviously I led you to that one. We talked many a times about that, and the cool things that they have. OpenClaw.ai. Again, no endorsement and whatnot, but we'll make sure for those that are looking for it, everything we talk about will be in the show notes for you to just dabble and take a look at and go from there. Second one for you. What was your biggest aha from the ScaleCon conference and feedback that you received from MSPs?
Ooh, yeah, I think it was the live interaction from the audience during my talk. And probably the best one was the callback play, which was something I learned right there, which is just a really good strategy on closed tickets. And what happens is every time you have a closed ticket in your business, you wait 24 to 48 hours, and then someone on your team, it's their job to call back the user who submitted the ticket. What you do is you call them back and you'll say something like, okay, I'm just, this is like a customer success manager. I'm just calling back. You submitted it got closed 2 days ago. Is everything resolved from that? And then you've got one of two paths. One path is they're like, yeah, that was awesome. The engineer solved everything immediately. I'm so happy with you guys. That's fantastic. Can I send you a link to leave a Google review? That engineer will get a bonus if you do that. That's a way to just crush your Google reviews. But what I really loved about it was that this actually cuts down recurring tickets so much, because what happens is you call back and they're like, well, actually it's not solved. And there's this little piece that's still open about it. It's like, oh, I'm going to elevate this ticket and we're going to get the root of it solved. Ends frustration from the client side and reduces future tickets. So it's the closed ticket callback play.
I love that. That's awesome. Last one for you is, if you could mandate one Google related habit for every MSP tomorrow, what would it be? And obviously we've talked about reviews so often through this. Would that still be where you stand on that, put that flag down in that pillar, or are we going to say something else related?
I think the other one would be the engineers taking photos at the client sites. So I think that's still, I visited an MSP yesterday, Better Days Technology, just in my neighborhood, friends with the owner there. And they have the coolest social media account. If you guys want to check them out on Instagram, Better Days Tech, they do a lot of video camera installations, and the content that they're producing for access control it's just fun to watch. Like, those guys are like kind of famous. Jeff, Damon, Bobby, like we know them because they've got personalities on the account. So I just think documenting more of the cool work that you guys are doing and putting it on your Google business profile first to get that all that XIF stuff out there, but also it's just amazing content.
Awesome. Perfect. Nate, again, we could probably go on for hours, but I want to make sure we keep enough for those that are going to write in to let us know that they want you back on here, and we will have you back on here soon. If there's anyone listening today who wants to reach out to you, either to talk about what we talked about on this platform, learn about more about your businesses, or just what you have going on nowadays, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
So I think number one thing is you can always schedule a growth call on our website, and you just go to mspsites.com and then you click the growth call button. That'll get you with Susanna from my team. She'll kind of give you all the information you need, like what options there are to work with us. If we want to invite you to an upcoming webinar, that's of no cost, things like that. And like, just feel free to do that and just get the ball rolling. If you want to engage with me directly, the best way to do that is to attend one of our webinars. And right now I can kind of read out the link, but I think it's going to be easier if you guys find me on Instagram and you go to my Instagram profile. My Instagram profile is Nate Helps MSPs. Just one word. Click into my profile and click my link in bio. From there, you'll see our next webinar. Right now, it's at mspsites.com/website-lead-system. We've got like 3 more dates of it. We've got we've got a couple coming up in April because I don't think the next one will be published in time. And that's where we take like 90 minutes and we go slow and we cover everything we talked about today. April's probably the last time we're going to be running that particular session this year. But in May, we're going to have a new topic and we're going to have a whole new session. So we've got stuff inside our membership, but we've also got stuff for people outside of our membership. I think following on social and then attending at least one of the webinars, that'll get you into our program, at least in kind of like the general ecosystem, free tier, not having to pay for anything.
Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. Well, again, Nate, appreciate you coming out here talking with us today. And we appreciate all of you tuning in. Tune in every week. You can catch us on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button so that you're notified when a new episode drops. If you want to take us with you on the go, we're on all your favorite podcatcher apps. Just head over to mspunplugged.com. Click one of the fancy icons that stays relevant or relevance to you. We're on platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, to name a few. And just feel free to tune in every week over at MSP Unplugged. And if you haven't checked us out at techconunplugged.com just yet, don't forget to get your tickets. Again, we're back September 17th to the 19th in Chicago. So once again, for myself, Nate here, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.